So I wanted to do a follow-up video to the video I recently did in regards to 2 plant-based medicines that have been found scientifically effective for things like epilepsy, seizures, and convulsions. So I know that people will be coming to me and being like, where's the proof, all that stuff, so that you know I do not post the research documents on YouTube. I post the links to the peer-reviewed medical literature or the studies that I am quoting from or stating my facts from will be found on thewilddoc.com when the videos, this is key, when the videos are posted to my website. Again, we're human beings. We're trying to get the information out to people as quickly as possible, start conversations so that we can make real changes in healthcare, so that people shouldn't have to wait. But the reality is the studies will be posted underneath the videos on my website, thewilddoc.com. That's where you can get these. But I wanted to go into further detail into this conversation because I know, and I've already gotten word, that people are wondering how I can claim that the negatives of such drug treatments when they're FDA approved and all these things. And I do speak kind of harshly about the Epilepsy Foundation in that. And the reason I do is because, and let me point out, and I hope and pray that you'll stick with me through this video to understand why I get frustrated with some foundations. I see them oftentimes, and they're owned, they're backed financially by drug companies. They're used to downplay the significant benefits of potential uses of things like CBD or cannabis oil. You know, and the cannabinoids of cannabis can be beneficial, not just CBD, and oftentimes companies will claim that CBD is the effective component alone, but if they extract just CBD, they don't have other beneficial things like terpenes. So there's different extraction methods for this, and the studies, such as those done in Israel, are very beneficial for for epilepsy and seizures in children especially that were drug resistant. So no medical drug, they had to fail 7 other drugs before they were put on this for this clinical study. And some of these children having hundreds of seizures a day literally are seizure-free because of this medicine, with the minimum amount, very few having some stomach problems and indigestion because of CBD, and they had to quit it. And that was the most severe reaction was that, according to this clinical study. And again, this will be on thewilddoc.com. But I want to go into further detail in looking at what the Epilepsy Foundation says about a specific drug. I'm going to talk about one specific drug in particular here because drugs to treat epilepsy can come with serious side effects. So I have on my computer right next to me the Epilepsy Foundation, and I'm going to read directly from that some of these things. I wanted to see the side effects, and here's what I wanted to do with this investigation. I wanted to see if the Epilepsy Foundation would warn people against using the drug or warn them about the serious, sometimes deadly side effects of Lamictal. Okay, I have here in my hand an article. Lawsuits say GlaxoSmithKline, it's GSK in the title, failed to warn of Lamictal side effects. All right, some of the highlighted things I have here. In July 2012, GlaxoSmithKline must remind everybody right now, timely is why I'm reminding you about this, is the fact that GlaxoSmithKline lobbied and paid the Italian government up to $1 billion in their amount of their type of money. They paid him that much money, and 1 year later, the Italian government goes to force children to be vaccinated. So they made a deal. They made a deal, in my opinion, with one of the most corrupt, and in fact, the most corrupt drug company in the world. They have paid more money to the United States government for the False Claims Act and defrauded the American people and lied to the FDA more than any other drug company out there. So their actions speak louder than their words when they say they're all about seeing people get healthy or heal with their drugs. They keep lying about the safety of their drugs or even the effectiveness of their drugs. Their actions speak louder than words. So the settlement will be $3 billion to resolve allegations of fraud and failure to report product safety data of Lamictal. The settlement was the largest in healthcare fraud settlements in U.S. history. Rare side effects such as Stevens-Johnson syndrome, SJS, and toxic epidermal necrolysis I'm not going to post the picture of this, because it is literally, it'll make your stomach turn. It'll almost make you cry for these people that have been stricken or hit with this condition because of this drug. And this can happen with almost any medication out there. All right, they can cause a severe reaction, an autoimmune type response to where your body literally attacks and kills the skin on the surface of your body. You will literally, these people, if you look at the pictures of some of these children and these people, it looks like somebody doused them, poured gasoline over their entire body and lit them on fire. It literally is a flesh-eating disease, just destroying this person, scarring them for the rest of their life. That's the details of Stevens-Johnson syndrome and necrotizing, again, necrotizing 10, or TEN, toxic epidermal necrolysis. All right? Though Lamictal and Stevens-Johnson and 10 is rare, but they say up to 10%, according to the research, up to 10% of people who take this drug will have serious skin reactions. And I'm saying serious because these are not simple skin reactions. But I want you to listen to this and what they say here. Now here's the bit, let me reiterate my points here. GlaxoSmithKline withheld evidence that they knew people would be permanently scarred for the rest of their life if they took this drug, that people would die and people would commit suicide. All right, and that's over here. All right, so they knew that was going to happen, but they withheld that evidence. That's what frustrates me. That type of information should have been placed in the hands of the people who were thinking about taking the drug for themselves or were thinking about giving this medication to their children. And it should have been placed in the hands of our medical physicians to know what serious problems could occur from this med before I put a patient on this drug. But that evidence wasn't even given to our medical physicians because the FDA didn't even get the information from the drug company with which withheld it. Because remember, the FDA doesn't get all the information. The medical community allows, for some reason, drug companies to do their own safety research and effectiveness research on their drugs and then come with the paperwork from those studies and show it to the FDA and say, see, our drug is safe and effective again, you know, just like our last one. Oh wait, no, or our last one was Vioxx. Yeah, that killed a lot of people. It's ridiculous that we trust them to hand over the truth when they lie over and over and over again. I just don't understand it. So you can see my frustration. But take a look at this. Watch this. So what are the most common side effects according to the Epilepsy Foundation with Lamictal? Most common? Most people who take Lamictal don't have too much trouble with side effects. The most common complaints include dizziness, upset stomach, headaches, unsteadiness, double vision, and a rash. Most of these problems are mild to moderate. If you notice any of these problems, call your doctor. Sometimes the doctor can help by changing the amount of Lamictal taken or how you take it. No one should stop taking Lamictal or change the amount they take without a doctor's advice. Now, if you start having a serious skin reaction like Stevens-Johnson syndrome, you know what? You could be permanently disfigured unless you get to your doctor and somehow they say, okay, yeah, stop it. But what if your doctor doesn't allow you to get in for 2 weeks and they say, keep taking your drug? Doesn't make sense to me. Are we going to allow the emergency departments and the doctors to immediately call the person in the middle of the night, hey, my child's skin is bleeding and peeling off right now. When's the next appointment? I can't take him off the drug because the Epilepsy Foundation said I couldn't take him off the drug until my doctor says I can, but my son's skin is peeling off. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But that's literally, so just watch. Hopefully people get this. I really want to make a point of this. On the positive side, fewer people say they feel tired when they take Lamictal than with most other seizure medications. In fact, for many people, it's slightly stimulating. This is often welcome side effects, yay, unless it keeps them awake at night. People who have just started taking Lamictal, who have just started taking a larger amount, should be careful during activities that might be dangerous until they know whether they are having any side effects. Allergic reactions, in these common side effects, 10% of people who take Lamictal experience a rash. Almost none of these rashes are serious. They got sued. They got sued for hundreds, if not thousands, of people who developed literally a skin rash that made their skin peel off their body. None of these are that's a lie. Now watch. They most often occur in the 6 weeks of treatment, so during this time, try to be aware of any skin problems your doctor or nurse right away if you get a red rash. To be sure that it's not the beginning of serious problem, it's often necessary to switch to a different seizure medication. Long-term side effects. So far, we don't know about any long-term side effects of Lamictal. That's current, 2012. They got sued and fined for illegally withholding information from the FDA and the medical community about the serious side effects of permanent disfiguring conditions like Stevens-Johnson syndrome. And again, 10, toxic epidermal necrolysis. They're lying on their website. Unacceptable to me for them to sit here. Just Google Stevens-Johnson syndrome and toxic necrolizing epidermal necrolysis. Just Google the images of people and children with that condition. It's heartbreaking, folks. And for them to sit here and lie, that's unacceptable to me. Please, Epilepsy Foundation, be honest. And why don't you tell the American people and the doctors that GlaxoSmithKline had to bring fraudulent information to the table to get approval of this drug? Why don't you tell the people about that? Meanwhile, you'll sit here and say, oh, I don't know if I would try passion flower because it doesn't have enough studies on it yet. You can eat it in your salads. Native Americans have ate it for generations. I mean, it was literally a staple in the diets and gardens of people for years. It's proven historically safe. So, a tiny number of most serious side effects, tiny number of people who have Lamictal have dangerous reactions to it. Most have no side effects or perhaps mild ones that go away by themselves or can be easily treated. Stevens-Johnson syndrome is not easily treated. You're literally in a burn victim hospital and having skin grafts. Same thing with the TEN. All right? It's important to recognize most serious side effects. However, here's a list of the warning signs of maybe started a serious problem. If you notice any of these signs, call your doctor right away. Rash or hives, fever, swollen lymph glands, painful sores of the mouth around the eyes, swelling lips and tongue. Serious rash while taking Lamictal has been reported in 3 in 1,000 adults and 1 in 100 children. That doesn't sound too rare to me, to be a serious reaction, 1 in 100 children. Be sure to follow doctor's instructions about how much Lamictal to take. Okay, thank you for telling us that. Because starting with a low dose and increasing it gradually will reduce the risk of these reactions. If you see a rash, talk to your doctor about whether to stop taking Lamictal. Do not stop. And I thank them for saying that. Like I'm glad they're saying that, but they need to be a little bit more stressful and not say that long-term side effects. So far, we don't know about any long-term side effects of Lamictal. They shouldn't be saying that. That's a false claim. But going on, if we see a rash, in July 2010, July 10th, 2008, an advisory panel was convened by the FDA, which they haven't updated any serious information, it seems, since 2008 on the Epilepsy Foundation about Lamictal, because they have no mention of the fraud in the criminal acts by GSK for Lamictal marketing and promotion. But they do mention here that the FDA convened a panel and they looked over the data that had previously, get this, reviewed data that the FDA had previously collected from drug studies showing an association between anti-epileptic drugs and suicidal ideation and behavior, which together are called suicidality. According to the FDA's alert, among the patients with epilepsy in these drug studies, 1 out of 1,000 people taking the placebo, inactive substance, showed suicidality compared to approximately 3.5 per 1,000 people taking anti-epilepsy drugs. That is why I was stressing we need to push the Epilepsy Foundation to fund and help us fund. And guys, we need to get government organizations, the Epilepsy Foundation, we need to get doctors, because you know what? The farmer, passion flower grows wild all over Tennessee. You know what? If I was a farmer, and even if I had millions of dollars, folks, even if I grew an entire farm of passion flower vines and I was selling this, guess what? I'd have to go to the FDA, fund clinical trials at universities, which take hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. Then I would have to go to the FDA and pay them hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to get the drug approved. It's ridiculous. You have to pay for approval. It's not about whether a drug or plant-based medicine is effective. It's whether you have the money to pay for approval. That's what it's all about, folks. So literally, you would be asking farmers and herbalists and farmers don't have that kind of money because we can't patent, we don't get the insurance to funnel money out of the hands of pockets of people into the hands of the insurance company and then pay doctors and big drug companies. So we don't have massive millions of dollars, and you can't patent it. So no one can ask for a passion flower farmer to pay for FDA approval. Get that, folks. Please, let me reiterate this. The FDA does not approve based on effectiveness. They approve things based on money, if you have enough money to pay. There is well-established clinical research proving the effectiveness of plant-based medicines. Beyond the effectiveness for things like depression, get it, folks. Beyond the benefits of drugs for depression, plant-based medicines are more effective in several clinical trials in human beings, but that plant still has not achieved FDA approval because nobody who farms has the money to pay for that. And guess what? If I was the farmer, paid all the millions of dollars for approval of the passion flower to treat epilepsy and paid for all the clinical trials, guess what? I would lose my farm afterwards because then anybody and everybody who has a backyard and lets weeds grow would have passion flower growing because I couldn't patent it and make all that millions of dollars back and then some to be able to profit for my efforts. So literally, you'd be bankrupting yourself by paying for that. So that's why we need to call for the Epilepsy Foundation to fund the trials on things like passion flower, because the animal studies are there, and that's what is the next step, is human clinical trials. But they did find out through the FDA's review that suicidality was increased because of these medications. And again, passion flower could be an answer in animal studies showing a decrease in depression episodes in these animals. So they can test for depression in animals and watch them and observe that it actually has a mood-enhancing effect. So it protects against both depression, it would protect then against suicidality. Potentially, we need it in human trials, and then it would potentially help against, it does help against the epilepsy, folks. So again, they look at this, taking anti-epileptic medicines may increase the risk of having suicide thoughts or actions. Do not make any changes to the medication regimen without first talking with a responsible healthcare professional. You know, a responsible healthcare professional, in my opinion, wouldn't be trusting GlaxoSmithKline anymore. Being that they had mentioned Avandia, Wellbutrin, Paxil, they had just been lying about all of those. They literally say GlaxoSmithKline is no stranger to litigation. They're no stranger to standing in front of our courts and pleading guilty to lying to the FDA and to medical physicians about the safety and effectiveness of the drugs. They're no stranger to that. They've made a business out of lying, folks. So you can tell why I personally am like, please, let's get together as a community, as people, to say enough's enough seeing drug companies lie to us. We should take over the government agencies as the people of this country for which they should serve. They shouldn't be serving drug companies and making it so hard and so expensive to get approval. They should just say, listen, if we've got the studies on elderberry, if we've got the studies on passion flower, if we've got the studies there, then we need to fund it so that then people could grow the plants and medicine in their own backyard, and we'll teach them how to use it, and thus we increase the hope and vitality and financial well-being of everyone in our nations, not just the rich and powerful, the drug companies. hope y'all feel what I feel when I get worked up about this. I hate having to do this, but I don't see anybody else seems to do it. I mean, and get this, the criminal plea agreement also included certain charges or violations not formally listed. So the courts allowed GlaxoSmithKline to hide some of the criminal actions. Well, we found out what some of those criminal actions were. If you read Forbes magazine, is Big Pharma addicted to fraud? You just Google that. I'm not going to post the link to it. Just Google it. Is Big Pharma addicted to fraud? You'll find out they bought sex workers for doctors in China to get the doctors to prescribe more of their drugs, for which then thousands of people may have lost their lives due to overprescribing of their drugs. So GlaxoSmithKline employs prostitutes. And I'm not saying anything negative. Jesus Christ hung out with prostitutes. He wanted to help them, and I would love to help them too. But I'm not going to try and sell my drugs by asking somebody to go through that act with somebody else, a sexual act, perform sexual. You guys, like, that's why I get worked up, because they are so corrupt. Currently, dozens of victims and their families are suing GSK for defective product allegations, including and allegedly mislabeling and safety warnings of Lamictal. There is no mention. So I'm calling on the Epilepsy Foundation. I'm calling on people out there to call the Epilepsy Foundation and say, hey, you have no mention of the permanent disfiguring condition of Stevens-Johnson syndrome and, again, TEN, which is, again, toxic epidermal necrolysis. You have no mention of that. You downplay the serious potential risks of this drug. You say there's no long-term side effects, that they don't know of any. Yeah, there's one right there, because people could have permanent scarring, disfiguring effects of this drug for the rest of their life. And that, to me, is a permanent, established side effect of that drug. So please take that statement off the Epilepsy Foundation's wall. Again, folks, I hope you understand the mission that I feel is called upon on my heart is to bring awareness to corruption, to evil doings in this nation, especially when it comes to healthcare. And then to bring about the understanding that, yes, we need more data and information so that people can understand how to formulate their own plant-based medicines. We need more information, and we need people willing to teach that and be willing to say, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to teach somebody to fish rather than selling them really expensive fish that doesn't really actually feed them, like drugs. So we need people willing to teach, hand over the abilities to people to be able to both feed and medicate and heal themselves. That's what we need more of in this nation. We need less dependence on doctors and drugs. We need more independence given to the people through information that in which they could identify plants, herbs, plant-based medicines within nature that literally grow for free in many, many areas of the world. We need to get that type of information out to people. So I hope you'll continue to share these videos, and I hope you'll continue to, tune in, chime in, comment, questions, help me make better videos so that I can get people better information. All right, get on the website if you want the references and the links to these articles or references that I referenced in this video. Take care. Hey everybody, I'm the Wild Doc, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hop on over to thewilddoc.com. Subscribe there for our newsletter and email campaign. Join in the conversation on Facebook, and let's transform the world by unleashing the power of natural healing.